Morning does not arrive gently. It arrives like a blade pressed against your honesty, demanding an answer long before your mind is ready. You wake not to sunlight, but to judgment, the kind that asks you whether you will rise as a warrior or fold as a wanderer. And in that silent moment between the alarm and your decision, you feel the sting of confrontation, your first enemy, waiting quietly beneath the blankets, made of warmth, softness, and the thousand excuses you've whispered to yourself over the years. That is the first cut of the day, and it will bleed if you let it. You think ancient warriors were forged in duels, in fields stained with conflict, in smoky hours before battle. But Musashi teaches a different truth. The battle began long before the sword was drawn. It began in the dark, when a man's mind was still unshaped, when the discipline of dawn carved his spirit like a sculptor carving stone. Before sunrise, a warrior's path was already chosen. The first step onto cold ground was already a declaration of war against softness. Modern men do not fight warlords, but they fight negotiations in their minds, quiet, invisible, corrosive. They talk themselves out of effort, out of motion, out of becoming who they claim they want to be. A warm bed becomes a battlefield. A lazy morning becomes surrender. Musashi said, "Control begins the moment you open your eyes, and most men lose before they even stand." You feel it each morning too, that hesitation, that slight tremor between desire and weakness. But the truth is simple. Discipline is born in that first cut, when you push against the resistance of the morning and choose to rise, even when the world offers you one more minute of comfort. Especially then, because the blade only sharpens when it meets something that pushes back. 320 to 380 words, there is a heaviness men carry, but rarely speak of. It settles into the bones slowly, like a quiet fog that no one else can see. It's the weight of drifting, of living without the spine of discipline, without the direction of a trained spirit. Most men don't understand why they wake up tired, why their hearts feel scattered, why their days dissolve into noise and compulsions. They think it's fate. They think it's circumstance. But Musashi would call it by its true name: slavery to one's own impulses. An undisciplined life feels light in the moment, yet crushing over time. You are pulled by invisible chains, desires that yank your attention, impulses that hijack your will, emotional tides that sweep you from one distraction to another. The world does not shape disciplined men. The world shapes only the undisciplined, bending them into shapes they never chose. Ancient swordsmen lived in ordered minds, even when chaos burned around them. But modern chaos enters through glowing screens, endless comparisons, and the soft hum of comfort masquerading as freedom. Without discipline, a man becomes like a powerful horse without rein strength, wasted in frantic spirals, energy spent on nothing that matters. You feel the truth of this metaphor more than you admit. You felt days slip through your grip like water, felt your potential dissolve into hesitation, felt the quiet tragedy of a life that could be more, if only your spirit were trained to hold its own weight. Musashi warned that if you do not shape your spirit, the world will shape it for you. And the world is not a gentle sculptor. It chisels with distraction. It carves with ease. It grinds with pleasure. A drifting man is not free. He is simply unanchored. The weight you feel is not weakness. It is the burden of unused strength. And until you confront it, it will grow heavier each year, pressing your purpose into silence. There comes a point in every man's life when he realizes no one is coming to save him. No mentor, no lover, no friend can walk the inner road. He must walk himself. Musashi understood this long before he became legend. He wandered through mountains alone, training with only his blade, his breath, and the raw silence of nature as his witness. That solitude was not loneliness, it was devotion. The kind of devotion that only grows when you stop seeking the noise of the world and start listening to the voice that has been buried beneath it. Discipline demands distance. Distance from comfort. Distance from the familiar warmth of weak company. Distance from the chorus of people who trade seriousness for excuses. Modern men drown in noise, but a disciplined man steps away from it, not because he thinks himself above others, but because the path to mastery cannot be walked with those who resent the journey. You know this truth. You feel it in moments when you step away from distraction, when you choose silence over stimulation, when you turn from easy pleasures that promise relief but deliver nothing. This is the solitary forest. Musashi walked into the place where a man strips away everything unnecessary to sharpen himself. The place where wolves leave the pack not to abandon it, but to return stronger than before. And in that solitude, something begins to shift. Approval stops mattering. Applause loses its sweetness. The world's validation becomes too cheap a currency for the man who seeks mastery. Discipline becomes the quiet companion that never lies, never flatters, never bends. It simply reflects your truth back at you. There is a mysterious turning when the solitude that once felt heavy becomes sacred. You stop trying to escape yourself and begin training yourself. You stop running from the mirror and start carving the man in the reflection. You understand why Musashi walked alone. Not to be isolated, but to become undeniable. In the end, every disciplined man is a lone traveler, and the strength he builds in that silence becomes the voice that others eventually follow. Pain stands at the entrance of every meaningful path, not as an enemy, but as a gatekeeper who measures the seriousness of your intention. Musashi never sought comfort. He trained in rain, in hunger, in cold, in exhaustion so deep it carved shadows into his spirit. He understood a truth modern men spend their lives avoiding. Pain is not the obstacle. Pain is the initiation. Every man wants strength, but few are willing to walk through the fire that makes it real. We live in a culture that worships ease-off habits, soft emotions, soft expectations, yet the warrior knows softness corrodes the inner steel. Discipline demands friction. Without resistance, there is no refinement. Imagine a whetstone. A blade pressed gently against it remains dull. But when the edge is forced with pressure, with grit, with the shriek of steel grinding against stone, something sacred happens. The blade sharpens, it becomes what it was meant to be. The same is true of you. The same is true of every man who seeks to rise while others sink. Pain filters. It separates the devoted from the casual, the committed from the curious. Those who turn away from discomfort remain trapped in cycles of self-pity, while those who face it discover the quiet purity that lies on the other side. Pain purifies. It burns away excuses, illusions, and the soft stories you tell yourself. Discipline is not the absence of pain, it is the decision to step into it voluntarily. It is choosing the harder path because you know the harder path is the only one that transforms you. Musashi sought adversity not out of recklessness, but out of devotion to mastery. He understood that the gatekeeper does not step aside for the timid. You, too, have felt this truth when you've pushed past your limits, when you've endured what you thought would break you, when you discovered strength you didn't know you had. Pain revealed it to you, not gently, but honestly, and that honesty is worth everything. Discipline is not forged in moments of high motivation. Anyone can act when the fire is burning hot, when inspiration pulls you forward like a tide. The true war begins in the hour you least want to fight, when your mind is fogged, your spirit is low, your body begs for escape. This is the battlefield Musashi spoke of, the unseen arena where warriors win long before they ever touch a blade. Musashi's victories were born in training, sessions no one witnessed. In hours when fatigue blurred the world into silence, he did not wait for enthusiasm. He acted in resistance, in boredom, in the dull ache of repetition. That is where discipline is molded inside the storm of your own reluctance. Modern men lose these battles because they mistake emotion for command. They wait to feel ready, not knowing that readiness is a myth, a luxury undisciplined lives cannot afford. Meanwhile, procrastination grows like a shadow, subtle, creeping, always strongest in the hours when you believe you need rest instead of responsibility. The war within is not loud. It does not shout. It whispers softly, persuasively, urging you to wait, to delay, to choose ease over effort. But discipline is the art of acting despite not wanting to. It is the tightening of the stance when the storm inside pushes you to retreat. Imagine a warrior standing in swirling wind, vision blurred, footing unstable. A lesser man would run, but the disciplined man plants his feet. He slows his breath. He leans into the storm, not away from it. And in that defiance, something ancient awakens, a memory of strength older than your excuses, older than your doubt. You know this battlefield. You've felt it in your mornings, your late nights, your deadlines, your dreams, the moments when everything inside you says stop, but something deeper whispers, continue. That whisper is discipline, and when you follow it, you win battles no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. There is a holy rhythm in the life of a disciplined man, a quiet, steady cadence that shapes him with each repeated action. Musashi practiced the same strikes thousands of times, not because he was obsessed, but because he understood a truth modern men resist. Mastery is born from monotony. The blade becomes an extension of the hand only when the hand has repeated the motion enough times for the motion to disappear into instinct. In today's world, men chase novelty. They crave stimulation, variation, excitement. But discipline is not variety, it is devotion. The devotion to simple rituals, performed with unwavering consistency, until those rituals sculpt the very architecture of your identity. Imagine a drumbeat in a distant temple, steady, unchanging, ancient. That beat anchors the spirit. Repetition is that drumbeat. It keeps you aligned when life pulls you in 1,000 directions. It trains your mind to withstand chaos by grounding it in rhythm. Most men sabotage themselves because they underestimate the sacredness of routine. They abandon a ritual the moment it becomes boring, not realizing that boredom is the threshold of transformation. Musashi never sought entertainment in his practice. He sought embodiment, and repetition was the bridge. When you perform the same disciplined action day after day, you affirm your direction, your intention, your seriousness. Self-respect grows not from grand achievements, but from the quiet certainty that you can trust yourself to follow through. The world won't understand this rhythm. It's too slow for them, too patient, too deliberate. But for the man who chooses the path of discipline, repetition becomes a form of prayer, silent conversation between who you are and who you are becoming. In that rhythm, you find not monotony, but meaning. 300 to 360 words in Musashi's teachings. There is a principle called void, the art of removing everything that does not serve the path. Too many, it sounds abstract, but to a disciplined man, it is the sharpest truth of all. Discipline is not an act of adding more into your life. It is an act of cutting away. Modern men are drowning in cluttered digital chaos, emotional noise, restless thoughts, endless choices. They carry so much debris that their spirit suffocates beneath it. You feel it too. The fatigue of too many options, too many distractions, too many invisible attachments pulling you away from your path. Musashi lived with almost nothing because he understood that freedom is found in subtraction. A sculptor does not add to the stone. He removes everything that hides the form within. Discipline works the same way. It carves away your access to habits that weaken you, the relationships that drain you, the impulses that scatter you across a dozen meaningless directions. There is liberation in this cutting. The fewer weights you carry, the more precise your steps become. Life becomes clearer, sharper, simpler, not dull-focused, not empty. The modern world tells you to do more. Musashi would tell you to need less. When you cut away the unnecessary, you begin to see the outlines of the warrior you could become. You realize how much of your struggle was self-inflicted clutter. You feel the quiet power of a man with fewer choices but stronger intentions. Discipline is not the chains people imagine. It is the release of everything that once held you down. There comes a turning point on the path of discipline, a moment when effort dissolves into essence, when you no longer force yourself to act like a disciplined man, because you have become one. Musashi reached this state when his sword, his breath, and his decisions moved with the same silent precision. His mastery was not in technique alone, but in the unification of his being. Modern men often treat discipline like a temporary tool, used only when convenient. But true discipline becomes a transformation, subtle, gradual, mysterious. You stop bargaining with yourself. You stop hesitating. You stop questioning your direction. Your actions arise from a deeper core, a place where doubt once lived. Imagine a swordsmith holding his masterpiece. The blade is no longer fragile. It no longer questions its edge. It simply is what it was forged to be: sharp, reliable, unwavering. You are the blade. The hours of resistance, repetition, solitude, pain, all of it converges into identity. People around you will sense it, not through your words, but through your presence, through the steadiness in your choices, through the quiet strength in your restraint. You become a blade walking, a man who moves with purpose, whose emotions no longer thrash wildly, whose inner noise has been replaced by a stillness earned through hardship. Discipline is no longer something you do. It becomes the oxygen of your spirit, a state of alignment that requires no applause, no permission, no external push. When discipline becomes identity, you become unshakable. Most people think discipline is punishment, a harsh restriction, a self-imposed suffering, but Musashi reveals a truth that lands with the force of a lifetime. Discipline is love expressed in its hardest, purest form. It is devotion to the man you could become. It is respect for the future you will one day meet. Discipline says, "I will not betray you, not tomorrow, not years from now, not when comfort tries to seduce me away from the path. Musashi's life was an act of brutal kindness toward himself. He demanded mastery not because he craved dominance, but because he refused to abandon his potential. He held himself to a standard that others feared, and in doing so, he became a guardian of his own destiny. Modern men misunderstand this. They think discipline confines them, when in truth, it frees them from the chaos of their lesser impulses. It frees them from the emotional storms that once controlled them. It frees them from becoming a man who looks back with regret. Imagine a guardian standing at the gate of your future, protecting the life you are meant to live. That guardian is discipline. It is the part of you that refuses to let your future self suffer because your present self is tired, distracted, or afraid. The world bows to the man who conquers himself, not through aggression, not through dominance, but through alignment, through devotion, through the quiet, unrelenting love of becoming the version of himself that cannot be shaken. The brutal truth is simple. Discipline is the first form of love a man must learn, and once he learns it, everything else in his life begins to rise to meet him, because he has become the kind of man Musashi always spoke of, a man who has mastered the hardest opponent he will ever face, the one within.